Hey everyone, Gill Gross here post-match. Andy Murray versus Nikoloz Basilashvili, Wimbledon 2021, round one. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video in 3, 2, 1. Well, Andy Murray comes back in his first match since Wimbledon 2017 and beats Nikoloz Basilashvili in 4 sets. But disaster nearly struck for the Brit. Your final score 6-4, 6-3. 5-7, 6-3. But Andy Murray was up 5-love in the third set, served for the match at 5-1 in the third set, and lost the third set 7-5. Good bounce back after a long, pretty lengthy break to close the roof. After that, Murray comes out, wins the fourth set 6-3. I don't want to focus on the negative right now, though. It is great to see Andy Murray back on the tennis court, first and foremost. That match in the quarterfinal against Sam Querrey, where Andy lost the latter 2 sets 6-1, 6-1, that was the match where it was very clear that there was something drastically wrong with Andy Murray's hip. And since then, it has been a very, very long road back, and obviously something, a comeback that has looked rather improbable at times and impossible at times. And he is still playing at the highest level. He is not what he used to be. He is not the old Andy Murray, but he just took out a seed at a Grand Slam. And for that to still be possible for Andy Murray is a great thing. To do it in front of the home crowd, his home fans, was a great thing to see. And lastly, after the match, he was asked about, actually, he wasn't asked. Let me correct that. He brought up the fact that he keeps getting asked about if this was going to be his last Wimbledon and if he was done. And he said, no, I don't know why I keep getting asked that, because I'm not going to stop playing right now. And I'm telling this to nobody, because nobody listening or watching my show, I don't believe anyone watching this video is someone who are in these press conferences. But if you are, if you happen to be, stop asking players if they are going to retire. When they are ready to retire, they will tell us. There will never be, that is the worst question ever. And there are many bad ones, but are you going to retire is the worst question ever. The answer has never been yes in the history of the media. Okay, let's talk about this tennis match. Andy Murray had a great tactic that he leaned on very heavily. He's a player who has the ability to really focus on certain strategies and really stick with them and diligently execute them time and time again. And I thought that's what Andy did in this match. He looked at Basilashvili, someone who is the most powerful player off of both wings on the ATP Tour, and said, okay, how can I solve that problem? How can I avoid Basilashvili's power? How can I neutralize it and disarm it? And he did so by keeping the ball very low, short in the court, and keeping the pace to a minimum, and especially on the backhand, but he even did it on the forehand, implementing the forehand slice down the line at times. And essentially what he does, as long as the ball stays low, this works. I want to emphasize the height is important, but if you keep the ball short in the court and low and make it so that Basilashvili needs to move inside the baseline to hit the ball, he is now in a position where he cannot use his power, and it's a matter of physics and geometry. There is not a lot of space between the contact point and the baseline, and there's not a lot of space between the contact point and the net. So you have to get the ball up over the net and down before the baseline in a very short period of time, or a short distance, I should say. There is a very small window. Therefore, it's impossible to actually hit the ball really hard and get it in that window. You can hit the ball with a lot of topspin. You can slice the ball back. You can, there are things you can do. You can try to hit short angle, but you can't really hit it hard. The way you remedy that, or the disadvantage to that as well, you are inside the baseline, so there's not a lot of time for your opponent to react. Therefore, if you did this to certain players, let's say Andy Murray did this against Roger Federer, for example, Federer wouldn't mind. Federer would step inside the court and hit very precise and well-placed ground strokes from inside the court, whether it be approach shots, slice, or regular topspin ground strokes. A player like Federer would handle that quite well. And the reason for that is he has great hands. And that's what the mid-court game is about. Once you're well inside the baseline, especially when you're hitting the ball from below the height of the net, it becomes about feel and hands. And you need the skill and the precision to put the ball in the right spot. And if you can do that, well, you can be offensive from that position. But Basilashvili does not have hands. He has no hands. He has power. So the fact that Murray was able to bring him inside the court, and I mean, I think some people refer to this as junk balling, but there's really nothing junky about it. It's a perfectly salient tactic to use. I think he was even doing it on his running forehand, keeping that ball low and flat and just making sure that Basilashvili was not getting anything from the back of the court from a high contact point. Because once Basilashvili is behind the baseline, hitting the ball in his strike zone, he is going to absolutely clock it. And that's when you're going to get yourself in trouble. So Murray executed the tactic brilliantly. I think he served really well for the first two sets and then a lot of the third set. Some of the third set, I should say. And Basilashvili had a really off day returning, was not able to attack Murray's second serve. I think that also had something to do with the height of the ball, just not bouncing high enough for Basilashvili to really feel comfortable taking big cuts. And all of those things combined, it really looked like a fantastically simple and straightforward day in the office for Andy Murray. Up 2 sets, up 5-love. And Basilashvili checked out, which is what he does very often. He comes kind of in and out of focus. And at that point, I checked out a little bit. If this were like Monday Match Analysis, I would go back and I would rewatch it and really have a better idea of what happened. But I checked out a little bit at 5-1. But of course, I think the main things is Murray doesn't make any first serves anymore. It completely escapes him. And his first serve percentage, it's the only set in the match that he dips below 50%. I believe he was above 60% for all three, the other 3 sets. So he doesn't make any first serves. And Basilashvili just steps in a little bit and starts to get more aggressive on the second serve return, leads to some breaks of serve, but Murray absolutely chokes. There's really nothing else to say about, I don't say that with any hesitancy. He totally tightens up. He is missing tons of backhands, regulation backhands, a lot of topspin backhands, not being decisive with his shot selection, and absolutely tightens up to the fullest extent. And Basilashvili also starts to handle the midcourt ball a little bit better. That was only momentary, but I think he just loosened up and he started to get a better feel for it. And he comes storming back and wins this third set 7-5. At this point, it is too dark for play to continue. They have to close the roof and turn on the lights. And I don't care, I don't really care that much about the break. Most players would have lost here. I don't care that there was a 20-minute break. Most players in Andy Murray's position would have been defeated. This is about determination and a certain level of mental toughness. Nerve management is a separate category. And if there's one thing, if I can backtrack just a little bit, if there's one thing that Federer and Murray's comebacks have shown us, it is that rust is not just physical. Rust is also mental. Federer and Murray have shown us that. And Andy Murray has played 2 matches since March. 2 matches at Queens since March. So this is a rusty tennis player. And closing matches, finding the finish line, we've seen it so often with Federer, especially when he's just not match tough, rust is very mental. So he's, with Murray here, it was unbelievable, and you would think a multiple time major champion such as Andy Murray would not have this problem, but that's just not how it works. And tennis players are only as confident as their last couple points and their last couple games. That's the reality of it. So Murray got tight. He gets the break, and he does a good job resetting, and I believe his experience helps him there. And then after that, I think he gets back to the game plan, and he starts to make first serves. He said after the match he remembered what got him in that winning position, which was drop shots, bring Basilashvili forward. By the way, one thing I didn't mention about the midcourt ball is that Basilashvili would often have so little confidence hitting that midcourt forehand that he'd actually slice it. The backhand, a lot of the time he'd make errors. Sometimes he'd slice it back. But the forehand, to slice it, I mean, you're handing over your weapons when you do that. So it was a really good tactic. And then also he's not a very comfortable volleyer. So not only did Murray have the low short ground stroke or the short chip, he also had the drop shot at his disposal. All of that short, low pace stuff, it was all working really, really well against the Georgian. And it was uncanny how often Murray's slice led to Basilashvili backhand unforced errors, topspin backhand unforced errors. Again, when he has to create off of that side from a low contact point, it takes a lot of feel. He just doesn't have that. He would much rather take someone who he plays great against, Andrei Rublev. Basilashvili they have a tight head-to-head. I think it's like 3-3 or something like that, maybe 2-2. Basilashvili is the kind of player who would much rather take an 80-mile-per-hour cross-court Andrei Rublev backhand and clock it down the line. He would much rather hit that ball. He does not want to hit a slow slice backhand from Andy Murray and try to generate something off of that ball. He just doesn't. So it was really smart. Then Murray went back to making first serves. I also thought that Murray's backhand return was quite good in this match. It was good to see that shot flashing. He made a good one on match point. If you pull up, that one on not crazy, but just as an example. The forehand return lagging behind, the movement not great. So now looking forward for Andy Murray, I still have a lot of questions because the game plan that he implemented against Basilashvili here is not going to work against everyone. He's going to need to play drastically different matches tactically in order to have success. And I'm wondering how successful he'll be trying to do different things because there are some things in this match that he did not do well. He was not assertive, nor was he aggressive on his forehand. His backhand was a little bit up and down for Andy Murray's standards. Of course, he had the fluctuation with his first serve. He did not return serve well on his forehand side. So, he's going to need to show some different things. He had a very, he had a tactical edge in this match. That's because of his feel, his hands, and his tool bag, and what he has at his disposal, and his ability to execute a game plan against an opponent who is not really an all-court player, is a very unique player in the sense that he has just brutalizing power but has no feel and doesn't have any sort of comfort in the mid-court when you can't hit the ball hard and you need to rely on your precision instead. So that's that. Let's see how he does in the next match. Quick programming note. Not going to do the comment response. I'm thinking about doing a live mailbag on Wednesday. And so no traditional Monday Match Analysis comment response. But of course, 3 post-match videos up on the channel today. Novak Djokovic against Jack Draper. Stefanos Tsitsipas against Francis Tiafoe. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.